Good evening. You're live on Joy 99.7 FM and on Joy News Channel. Listen, tonight is a very special night. Personality Profile comes to you every Thursday evening. And I look forward to it because we get to sit with amazing men, amazing Ghanaian men and women who have charted a path worth emulating. And this evening, I've got one such amazing guest for you. Well, listen, this is the part you stop everything you're doing, call a friend to tell a friend, tell your family members that, look, they need to also tune in and check this conversation out. There's one that you're going to love. If you get on our social media platforms as well, you can actually share it across for your friends and family to also check it out. Now, sit back, relax, get a glass of wine or something of the sort, and enjoy the conversation we're about to share with you. He's an amazing statesman, one that you'd love to know about. And we get to walk into his life, a little bit of it, just a little bit of it, here on Personality Profile today. I'm Lexis Bill on behalf of the crew. I welcome you aboard. Now, we call him a man who has been in the mill and out when it comes to management in Ghana. My guest has over 5 decades of experience at the apex of the corporate management and public sector advisory roles in Ghana and internationally. He's a proven leader in strategic management and a much sought after advisor to government, public sector, private sector organizations. Tell you what, in 1983, he became chairman of UAC Tanzania, becoming the first African chairman of any Unilever company outside his home country. In 1986, as well, exactly 20 years after joining the company, he became chairman of UAC Ghana, and in 1992, became chairman Unilever Ghana Limited. He steered the company from a depressed conglomerate into a focused and prosperous company. Yeah. Now, he chairs a number of boards, including MTN Ghana, Standard Chartered Bank, and Wilmar Ghana. He's a role model for management in Africa. At the national level, he's been chairman of the University of Ghana Council, member of the board of the Central Bank, president of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, president of Ghana Employers Association, president of the Private Enterprise Foundation Ghana. I could go on and on and on. In fact, a piece that I read suggested that he should be in contention for a world record for the highest number of boards served on. His life is one that really needs to be documented, and rightly so. It has. Yeah, Documenting Ghana is a compelling biographical documentary film series that delves into the life of and stories of personalities who have significantly influenced the fortunes of Ghana. Yeah. The series aims to shed light on the rich history and remarkable achievements of these individuals, presenting their journeys in a captivating and informative manner. Dr. Ishmael Evans Yamson, chairman of Ishmael Yamson and Associates, is one of the people who has been featured in the 5-part biographical documentary film series that will premiere on the 15th of October. So to warm up to that release, we get to follow part of his journey here on Personality Profile, and I'm excited. He's here. Doc Akwaba.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Pastor Nothing Deng.
Somebody.
And I'm Fansone, President.
Oh, Fansone, the make up.
Okay, Papa. Show me Mukakra because maybe your chin into me come Fansone.
Oh, well, Chef Answer was a woman.
Aha.
Now, we Chef Answer so called levels.
Oh, sir. I was school.
I was
school.
It's to be trouble to make can.
Wow. From Bremen Kuntanasi. Any the bedroom crying.
But the benzene crying.
Oh, they won't sing crying. Anyway, I'm so happy to have you. How are you, by the way?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm very well.
So what, are you enjoying? And that's the thing. I was hoping you'd be enjoying your rest, taking it easy. But I see you and your PA and running around and doing this. And I'm like, hey, what for now, Ray?
Yeah.
What has been keeping you busy lately?
No, you see, but you just said in your opening remarks that there have been many great people in this country who haven't had the time to document their lives and tell their story, to motivate the young people.
Right.
And I have always thought that this is not the time to rest. For me, this is the time to give back to Ghanaians, especially the young people, because there are many things that they are losing today, that things that make them feel hopeless in their lives. But what they don't know is that some of us have gone through the same difficulties before getting to where we are.
Okay.
And a lot depends on the individual's own will and your determination in life. So that motivates me a lot. And many people always ask me, when are you going to retire? I say, when my soul gives up, I will retire.
But as we speak, no, it's still going strong. It's still going strong. I mean, I totally appreciate it. I've been interviewing people from all walks of life and the high echelons of our country, and it's inspiring to know that they take out time to also share a bit of their story for the young people who look up to them to also learn and emulate. Yes, and of course, yours hasn't been an easy journey at all.
No, it hasn't been. Like many of my generation, I had a very difficult beginning. I never knew my father. I saw him when I was probably, the last time was about when I was 6, 7 years old. Never saw him again. And I grew up in the house of...
What happened? He ran away?
Well, no, I wouldn't say he ran away, but he was a UAC cocoa buying agent. You know, those days they were transferred every now and then. So when he left our village, but before then there had been some issues that had led to a separation between himself and my mother.
And your mother, okay.
And at the time, my mother was, I was only about 6 months old when the separation came. And my mother was very ill. But luckily for me, my grandmother had had a baby, literally of my same age, 6 months apart.
Okay.
So I grew up in the hands of my grandmother, feeding on my grandmother's breast.
Wow.
Yes. So,
wow.
Oh yeah. So when my father left, I never saw him again until one strange day he appeared and said, wanted to take me away. My grandfather said, never. He's going nowhere. Because my grandfather too, they had had 15 children, 11 had died. And only 4 remaining and no woman, no man. So when I was born, he thought I was a gift. That's why he named me Ishmael.
Oh.
You know, so.
It's a biblical prophecy.
Yes. So, and he was a great Christian too, so. I literally didn't know my mother until much later in life.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was always my father, and my grandmother was my mother.
Okay.
And my grandmother had to go to great lengths to get me to call him granddad. So I didn't know how to call him granddad. I knew about that, and I kept asking, why do you want me now to call you Nana? Because I've always known you as my... So then he took me aside and told me the story. While he was in tears, he was telling me the story.
Wow. At what age did you get to know the story?
Look, I was in secondary school from 3. So I was already a grown-up.
You're already a grown-up?
Yeah.
Okay. So but what kind of upbringing did you get from them?
Oh, I must say that I was lucky. I don't know what would have happened if I had grown up in the hands of my father. But my grandfather was a great Christian. He actually brought the Methodist Church to our village.
Breman
Continency.
Okay.
So he was I saw paying for all the time I had known him.
Okay.
Until actually he died. And it was a very tough upbringing. Very well disciplined. You know, in the evening, you had to go to church with him at 6 p.m. In the morning, he wakes you up. You have to. I didn't want to go to school anyway.
You didn't want to go to school?
No, I didn't want to go to school. I was enjoying my kid life. So, and I still remember, because one day he tricked me into his sister's house, supposedly to accompany him to his sister. What I didn't know was that he had arranged with somebody behind the window. So he picked me up through the window, the other man took me, and the school was just by. It was a church, 10 school. You know, a coup that was staged recently. And at that time, the military, you know, really was trying to find its feet again.
Okay.
So I went for the interview, and the interview was another story. Because I didn't have money. All I could buy was a Chinese suit. Because though Nkrumah's regime was socialist, and you could only import things from the Eastern Bloc. So we had a Chinese suit. I bought a black Chinese suit and an Ivanhoe shirt. I'm sure people of my age will remember Ivanhoe shirt.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah. So the Chinese suit, the arm was very short, so it was somewhere here.
Okay.
And the shirt was somewhere here. So I looked like somebody who was really from the village. You know? And I was living in somebody's house in Abekan.
Okay.
And I had to travel from Abekan to UAC house, which was very close to the post office, on an untarred road. So by the time I got there, I was looking very scruffy, very dirty, dust all over my body. So one night, it was my turn, and I didn't know even where the washrooms were to go and brush my nose. So when they called my name and I entered the room, everybody started laughing. And one man said, where is this bushman from? As I was walking into the room to sit down, said, hey, where do you come from? I said, well, my mother is from Bremen Contrast, and your father from Sopon. They said in front of and a young man entered an interview with such a reception.
Yeah.
But I was totally unruffled whatsoever. I sat down, gave me the seat, I sat down. But as the interview progressed, it started to become livelier and livelier.
Yeah.
And one man put the question to me. There was an interview of 9, 6 whites and 3 Ghanaians. One of the Ghanaians just asked me, okay, young man, where will you be 20 years from now? And without hesitation, I said, I'll be chairman of this company. And everybody started burst out in big laugh. Are you crazy? Do you know what it takes to be a chairman of UAC? I said, well, I don't know, but I will be. And I'm telling you that exactly the same month, 20 years after, I was appointed chairman of UAC of Ghana.
Wow.
Yes.
The power of words.
Where
did that conviction come from?
Well, I told you I was very ambitious when I was young. But I was also very determined, particularly looking back at my background, where I had come from. A very poor family. The highest my grandfather thought of me was to become a Methodist church priest. And when I entered university, I decided that I would change the lives of my grandparents and change my own life. That I didn't want any child of mine to go through what I had gone through. So it was with that conviction that I made that statement. UAC at the time was also, trying to reduce the number of expatriates. Because you see, after independence, Africanization has started, earnestly in Ghana, especially in that company. So, okay, they showed me the place to go and wipe myself and come back, and said, okay, you will hear from us tomorrow. But before I could get out of the door, I was called back. And the chairman said, well, Ishmael, we have heard you. I think we don't need to waste any time. We'll offer you the job.
Okay.
And you start your career from Accra's company. Accra's company used to be a foods company.
Okay.
It was just, I don't know whether you ever heard of Hatramani Sports Shop. But the street to Bank of Ghana from the post office, that was where Accra's company was.
Okay.
And we shared boundary with Accra City Council at the time. That's where I started my career.
Wow.
I'll tell you an interesting story. Those days, if you come out of university, you were a big man already. If you joined government, you were entitled to a car, you were paid £680 at the time. And I go to Accra's company, and My first job was to sell ice cream on a bicycle at Makwala Market. So here was I on bicycle at Makwala Market, and all my mates thought I was getting crazy. And interestingly, I had a girlfriend at the nurses training college, and someone went, look, this is your young man that you are crazy about. Go and see him.
He's on the bike.
He's probably not a graduate because he's only asking about a bicycle at Makola at the entrance. You go, you see him there.
How long did you do that for?
Oh, I did that for 6 months.
Wow.
Yes, I did that for 6 months.
What's the biggest lesson you learned within that period?
I got to know about all the tricks of the ice cream boys. Because we had many ice cream boys who would come and take the ice cream in the morning, go and sell and bring the money in the afternoon. A lot of them will come and tell you stories about melted ice cream and this and that. And all that was a lie.
Mm.
Oh, they sold and pocketed the money. But they will bring you the empty boxes and the sticks to show that it did.
Yeah, it melted.
After the 6 months, I knew those tricks. And my first job was a training manager in charge of ice cream boys after I learned all the tricks. But
did you execute some of these tricks as well?
Well, I don't think so. Otherwise,
you don't. Let's just say you don't.
I never
remember.
have got my ambition. but let me just say that it was a good beginning for me.
Okay.
Because at the time, if we were graduates, you felt that you were a big man, and certain things you couldn't do or you should not be asked to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those days, you took 2 years before you were confirmed an assistant manager in UAC. 2 years, because you were recruited as a trainee manager.
Mm.
From there, you become an assistant manager before you become a full manager. And it could take anything up to from 6 to 8 years to become a full manager. But in exactly 14 months, I was a full manager. And I made history in the whole of Unilever. Because that never happened anywhere in the colonies. That an African will become a full manager in a UAC establishment in 14 months. But there I was.
That's serious.
Yeah.
And you would
And
go
so,
through the ranks within that 20-year period
Yes.
and rise to chairman.
Yes. And again, in 6 years of my career, 7 years of my career, I was already a director of Kumasi Brewery.
Wow.
When those people who were directors that I met, some had worked for 35 years before being made directors. And I had become a director in 7 years.
What were the factors that contributed to your meteoric rise?
Again, and I think if young people are listening to me, they should learn from this, because first of all, I had a great determination to succeed.
Personal motivation.
Yes. And I didn't, for me at the time, if we were a manager in charge of anything in Ghana, from ice cream to clothes to haberdashery to building materials, you could make money easily because things were scarce. So if we sold a ton of iron rods, you could build a house. And I had mates who built a house, many houses, only 9 years after they had worked in the company.
Wow.
Right?
How long did it take you?
Oh, 7 years before I retired, before I built a house. Yeah.
Really?
And so integrity is key to me. And I'll go back that my life was shaped by, I would say, 2, 3 things. First, my grandparents, who had high ethical values, and they would not tolerate anything that was unethical. And I remember when we went to secondary school, my grandfather gave me a Bible and said, that's what you live by. Then, Apap Secondary School has a motto. And it says, Obrapa Chewura Kwan. Obrapa no Janura Kwan. Ubra Bobo no Bezuichi. Literally, it's what you do, who you are, that will define your future. If you are an indisciplined person, you wouldn't fit into Unilever, because Unilever was more than a military establishment. So for me, those values from my grandparents and the motto of my school, and I still say that if I have to go to secondary school again, I'll go to APAM. Simply because anybody who has passed through those wars that I know live those values.
And let's get to when you became chairman of Unilever.
Yeah.
Now you had assumed a very humongous role.
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge running an entity like Unilever?
Well, you know, before becoming chairman, I had passed through six, because I've been from a Christ company to Kumasi Brewery to textiles, and then I was sent away to Tanzania to manage a caterpillar business. Totally different from anything I had done in my life. Now, before I went to Tanzania, I was offered 2 jobs. The UAC of Tanzania, and best I was in the UK. Best I was going to go there as a marketing manager in charge of ice cream, of course, given my background.
Yeah.
And Tanzania was a typical UAC business that had made losses for 9 years. So what the job was, the 2 jobs were offered to me. I said, I'll go to Tanzania. And the man said, are you crazy? Everything that we put to you, you take the most difficult one. Because at that time, Tanzania was a struggling country. There was nothing you could buy in Tanzania, and I can tell you, I took television set to Tanzania. It was seized at the airport because television was watched only by the bourgeoisie. So only expatriates were allowed to take television set to Tanzania. So you bring it, it's seized at the airport. But I tell you, 4 years after I was returning, it was given back to me.
Yeah, they kept it for you.
They kept it for me. They won't allow me to use it. They kept it for me.
Wow.
So I arrived, and in 7 months, this company that I've gone through 9 years of losses, I turned it around. And we made our first profit 5 months after I had arrived in the company.
What did you do?
Well, because the company was being run by, I would say thieves. People who were serving their own personal interests. Well, like here. You import maize meals, and people will give you the money before the maize meals arrive. And they made money. Everybody was working for himself. When I arrived, I went through the books, and some people have bought stocks that they would take 20 years to sell. Stock they knew nobody would buy, but they had gone to some merchant and bought them for UAC, taking their share. And they didn't care whether it took 10 years to sell. So I only stopped the bleeding, and
it turned things
the
around.
company was turned around in 5 months.
Wow.
So by the time I left in 4 years, the president then was President Nyerere, who I must say was a great person. Every Ghanaian man was his son, and every Ghanaian woman was his daughter. And he treated me very well when I was there.
Okay.
Now, 4 years, when I received my letter to return to Ghana as chairman of UAC Ghana, exactly the 20 years,
Yeah.
the Tanzanians were in tears, because I had given them a new lease of life.
Yeah.
It was a bustling company making lots of money. I had appointed many Tanzanian directors, giving them houses to live in. Those houses were only occupied by expatriates until I arrived. And all the senior people were expatriates, even secretaries were expatriates. And I said, where I come from, this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So I became quite little famous man, little famous Ghanaian who came to change our lives.
Wow.
And I had many friends, the governor of the bank, many senior public servants had schooled in Lagos. And I knew some of them anyway.
Okay.
So when my appointment letter came and I went to say goodbye, by the time Nyerere had retired and Ahmed Salim had become the president of Tanzania. And when I went to say goodbye to him, almost everybody, why should you go? I said, well, I must go back to my country. You know. So I became chairman of UAC. Now, let me come to your question. When I arrived in Ghana, UAC of Ghana, like UAC of Tanzania, was bleeding, was making heavy losses for 4 years. And that's why they said the only person who can turn this business around is the guy who went to Tanzania.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you now that if I had been in place I was, I would have missed this opportunity.
That's okay.
So I came back, looked at the businesses. I had 26 general managers. And Kingsway Stores alone, I don't know whether you remember Kingsway Stores.
Of course I do.
Had about 4,000 employees. Wow. And they were losing money hands down. So after 2 weeks, I called all the general managers and I said to them, and if you recall, that was a time the liberalization, trade liberalization had started in Ghana. This was 86, started in 84, 85 to 86. So I said to them, we all know the state of the economy and the state of the company. We can't go on like this. We have to restructure this business. So out of 26 companies, I created 6 companies.
You merged them?
Merged them, sold some of them, closed some of them down. Because we had a technical business which was split into many different parts. We have a textile business, so we are GB Olivan Textile, UAC Textiles, all selling the same thing, but everybody keeping different books, different set of managers. No. So,
that meant a lot of loss of jobs too.
Oh, well, that is true. But there was a choice to make.
Didn't that make you unpopular?
Oh, it made me extremely unpopular. Extremely unpopular. Even with ex-UAC people, I was there because people were emotionally attached to the division they worked in.
Yeah.
And then they hear this has been closed down. We had a whole business for business equipment and machinery, BEAM, selling exercise books and printing machines and basic things. I said, these things Ghanaians can do. Why are we competing with Ghanaians? So those businesses are closed down. But the hardest for me was Kingsway Stores. It was the hardest crack for me.
Why?
Because Ghanaians were deeply attached to Kingsway. If you wanted to buy the best suit, if you wanted to be seen as the man or the woman, you shop in Kingsway Stores. And that's where all the best things were. And to hear that was going to be closed down, and USC, Kingsway Store at that time was a private company with private shareholders, although we didn't have a stock exchange, So all those people, no, they wouldn't accept this.
What do you, if you look back at your tenure, what would you say was your proudest achievement?
I think restructuring UAC will be one, followed by merging UAC and Liba Brothers.
Okay.
To create Unilever Ghana.
Okay. Okay.
That was a big job.
One of the things you actually tout is the fact that you left with, you left and had a Ghanaian successor.
You know, I was very determined that I shouldn't be succeeded by an expatriate.
Why?
Well, because I had a, our first president has said we should prove that the African given the opportunity can manage his own affairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let me say that the Africanization had started before I arrived here.
Mm-hmm.
Except that Liver Brothers had never had a Ghanaian chairman. So when I put them together, the two companies had only one chairman. But the thing that I would tout was the fact that I trained so many young Ghanaians who today are in literally everywhere. The general manager was one of the people I recruited in Unilever.
Ken?
Yes.
Ah.
You can ask him.
Oh, I see.
Yes. And there are many. You can find them everywhere.
Yeah.
The MTN senior vice president for all MTN companies in Africa except Nigeria and South Africa. It's one of the guys I recruited. So I really am proud about that.
I think you had a graduate scholarship program at the time.
I had a graduate scholarship and postgraduate scholarship scheme.
Wow.
And I created that myself. Unilever didn't even want it. I said, I don't care. Because I created 3 chairs in the 3 public universities then. Legon, KNUS, and Cape Coast. And we offer scholarships to those who are doing science, mathematics, and economics. I was a bit selfish. So I put economics into it.
Your bias showed.
Bias. So,
you know.
and we were given, at the time, we were given about 300 scholarships.
Oh, okay.
And that was not the only level. We gave scholarships at the university level, at the secondary school level, and at the primary school level.
Oh, okay.
And I know families where all the senior people I know today all went to school in the UK with UAC scholarship.
That's beautiful.
And for those who were seen as having potential for future leadership, not only for UAC, but even in the country, I gave them scholarships to do postgraduate courses.
Okay.
And I know that the recently retired ECOWAS chief auditor was one of those boys who went to do his postgrad at the expense of the company. So that for me is one of my biggest achievements.
I mean, we could go on and on about the Unilever story actually, but let's move on. Like I said earlier, you deserve that Guinness World Record. You've served on almost a gazillion boards. My main question is, how are you able to juggle all of these? I mean, you had your company to run. I mean, your companies to run.
Yeah.
You sit on all of these boards. They all demand time.
Yes.
And I'm still thinking, okay, maybe I'm not doing enough. How are you able to put it all together?
Well, I think, first of all, you must have a passion to serve. And I think, for me, for most of the things I did, and I can tell you for most of the places I've been, in the public sector especially, I never received payment for anything. Not even sitting allowance or board fees, nothing. I just refused to accept them.
Because?
Because I thought I was doing my national service still.
So how are you funding yourself then?
Because I was still the chairman of UAC. I didn't need that.
That was
money.
enough?
Yeah, more than enough.
Then you were well paid.
Well, I was well paid, but I think that I was disciplined in the way I lived, right? But you see, when I was chairman, at one time, I was chairman of 3 private sector organizations, PEF, the Chamber of Commerce, and I think the third one I've forgotten, but 3 of them. And each one I was president. And in fact, I created Private Enterprise Foundation. You know why? Because the traders and the manufacturers, all Ghanaian companies, were fighting each other, like we saw recently. The traders are more interested in importing goods. The manufacturers want to make it here. And the traders say, no, but you are either more expensive or your quality doesn't match what's coming out. And I said, but if we have to make government recognize the private sector voice, we cannot be divided. So the Chamber of Commerce, the AGI, and the Association of Ghanaian Exporters, right? I said, let's come together and form a foundation. So although they were separately there as individual associations, we then had this, we created this apex body that spoke for the private sector. At the same time, I was chairman of the University Council in Lagos. And that was a different story, completely different story.
In all of this, did something have to give?
I don't know whether anything had to give. Unilever.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Family had to suffer.
Oh, I think to a very large extent, yes. But I think the family suffered not because I was doing this, but because I was also traveling a lot.
Right, yes.
I think the traveling was what hurt the family more.
Yeah.
And that's where I would say I had a very dedicated wife. And we chose carefully because she as a nurse chose to do night nursing. So she was on night duty most of the time so that she'd be home during the day to look after the kids.
Looking back, do you regret some of the decisions you made?
Well, if I regret anything at all, then I would say probably I don't think I did much in changing the mindset of Ghanaian government and Ghanaian politicians. That's where I regret. Because I think I had the capacity, and my generation, we had the capacity to shape or help shape Ghana's future. Literally, majority of us shunned politics, right? Because I came out of university a few months after the coup d'etat. Politics had been banned in the country. So, and for almost 22 years, there was no chance of anyone doing clean politics in Ghana. Every civilian administration didn't last more than 2 years. So why go and risk your future in a venture that you know will not last? Because the soldiers were standing there waiting for their turn. So we lost that opportunity, or maybe we chose to lose that opportunity. And then after 1992, we were old enough, to begin to say we are not going to dabble in politics. But I still think that we could have done a little more. I believe that, and that's why, those who have followed me know that literally I served every government that we have had until I wasn't too much involved in Mahama's administration, and I've not been involved in this administration at all. Before then, literally from Buzia, Leman, Rawlings regime, Kufuor, Atamers, I was very active.
What do you think you could have done with respect to this regret you're talking about, not doing enough to change the mindsets of people, especially when you look at what is going on now?
I can tell you that politicians are very difficult people to deal with, right? Some of them listen, but majority of them don't listen. And unfortunately, we live in a continent where our politicians have come to somehow believe that it is first about themselves before country. While some of us were putting our country ahead of ourselves. Because I told you, I could have been a multi-billionaire, but I was never motivated by money, wealth, never. Even as I sit here, that is not my number one priority. I sit here, my number one priority is how can we get a better Ghana than we have today? So when I was serving on all these boards, and that was my primary objective.
Okay.
But when you are an advisor, you are an advisor. You can give all the advice in the world. It is left to the person being advised to accept and take it or not.
Yeah.
So my regret is that we spent all the time, we made all the effort, but we didn't achieve much. Because the people that we thought could learn refused to learn.
Are times better now than then?
I think it's worse now than then. Why? Because, and I believe that Ghana was also very unlucky where we had far too many military interventions.
Okay.
Because it took us a long time, from 1966 all the way to 1992 to have a civilian administration.
Yeah.
Look at the time we lost. That was the same period that the Asian tigers rebuilt their countries.
Yes.
And I know from the literature that Ghana and South Korea were, put it that way, were started fresh life at the same time. Look at where South Korea is today.
Yeah.
And yet South Korea was built by a military man. And look at where we are.
If you were to, I don't want us to dwell too much on the economy and all of that, but I know you're passionate about socioeconomic development and whatnot. In our current state, which you confess that is quite really bad, if you were to prefer any advice, hopefully to be taken, what will it be?
Look, for me, I know there are only two things holding Ghana back throughout my life, whether when I was working in the private sector or whatever. Two things. Love for country isn't there, and corruption, we worship corruption. I can tell you today that if we have a government or any leader who truly, truly, truly believes in changing this country, it shouldn't take us 18 months to 2 years to change this country. And I mean it. Because I have, in the corporate world, I've seen worse situations than this. And yet it takes one man to change it, right? If a leader sets the tone, and if the leader decides to go in a particular way, there's no way that his followers will depart from it. So if we get the right leadership with the right values and the right attitude and puts the country first, then we shouldn't have a problem.
Dr. Ishmael Yamson. Dr. Ishmael Yamson. Now, I would have loved to go on and on and on, but we're running out of time. Just a few things that I want to find out from you. What is the biggest lesson this life? What, 80?
81.
81? What is the biggest lesson you've learned in this life?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned in my life is to have integrity in all you do. Because throughout my career, that has been my biggest problem, my biggest advantage. Because I don't compromise on anything that borders on integrity.
Okay.
I also believe that when you accept to do something, do it with passion. Believe in it. And I say it all the time, that if you know that you don't have a passion for something, don't do it. Because you won't do it well. You will never do it well. You probably will go and experiment. Because you don't, there's nothing in you which says, I want to succeed in this. You know? And finally, my advice would be, you should know what you want to do with your life. Right? And if you choose what you want to do with your life, then pursue it with determination.
There you go. Some really good nuggets for this life. No, I totally love it, and I totally appreciate that you shared this. You have decided that for the rest of your life you'll be a TV star. And so you're featured in Documenting Ghana.
Yes.
How was the experience, though?
No, first of all, let me thank Ekusia for dragging me into this, if I may put it that way.
Yeah.
But she convinced me that we have lost a lot of history and a lot of great lessons that our younger generations will never have opportunity to copy because it was never documented anywhere. You know, sometimes when I'm writing papers and I want to find out what some key people in this country stood for, it's been very difficult. In UAC, we had one of probably the best archives in this country. Yet when we merged UAC and Liber Brothers, the whole archive, which dates back to the 1800s, was just, and I asked people, where, because we made sure everything was documented. Now we can't find. And the person who wrote the commercial history about Ghana and West Africa spoke to me about this. So when Ekusia came telling me about, and now we have to do this, and I said, Ekusia, but who am I? And what do I represent for you to want to document my life?
Yeah.
But she insisted, and I can tell you she's a very persistent young lady.
You don't have to tell me.
You know.
Doc, I mean, I've seen that in 24 hours. Holy moly.
No, so the experience I've had to go through to recapture my life and tell my story has opened my own eyes.
Okay.
Because the thing that she has discovered about me, I had lost them.
Wow.
You know.
Well, luckily, we get to see it when it's premiered on the 15th of October, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you very much.
And God bless you.
And thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that we did this. Yes. And I'm sure a lot of people will learn from your journey, the passion, the love for country, the persistence, and the determination. I'm grateful.
And thank you.
We're so grateful that you also made time to watch this conversation and listen to us on Joy 99.7 FM as well. Dr. Ishmael Yamson. What a man, a great statesman. Yeah. Recommend this conversation to your friends and family as well, and look out for Documenting Ghana and the bit about him as well. Thanks to Akusi and the team who put it together. They've been totally wonderful. And my production crew and my camera crew, we're grateful that you spent time with us. I'm Lexis Bill. Enjoy your evening. You could have...
That has been my big